Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started here in just a moment. I just want to give everybody a chance to come in and get settled. We're so glad that you're here. Welcome, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the heart of school leadership. My name is Camilla Antoine. I am your moderator for today's webinar. I'm a professional learning specialist here at Harmony Academy, powered by National University. I'm excited about our topic and for you to get to meet our panelists and know more about Harmony. So just a few housekeeping things I want to make sure that we cover. We host these webinars really to bring together thought leaders and educators for best practices and tools that support social and emotional learning. These presentations are the opinions and the content of our guest speakers and may not necessarily be a direct representation of Harmony. You're going to get a recording afterwards, and that recording, feel free to share it with your colleagues. So be sure to look for it in your email. Here are our objectives for today. We are hoping to cover, we want to explore the impact of the effective school leadership when heart is at the focus of the school leadership. We want to also discover the key leadership skills needed to support teachers and students' relationships and well-being. And finally, we want to learn how to advance leaders and educators' careers through social, emotional, and academic development, leveraging new Harmony certificate programs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. All right, so we want to do a poll. We love to get to know our audience and get to get a feel of who's in the room and some thoughts around our topic today. So we have a poll question here that says, what do you remember most about school leaders with heart? So you should see that pop up on your screen, and we want to give you all an opportunity to answer that quick poll question. Right, I see those answers coming through. I'm operating with two screens, so I can see those answers filling up there. Wow. We'll give it like a few more seconds because I still see people are answering. All right, I think we're ready. So I am going to show you all those responses and let's see what we've got. All right, hopefully you all can see those results on the screen there. And it looks like all of the above comes out to be that top answer, but the options that you had were the way they showed care for me and other staff. So that came out at 31%. Also, the time they took to listen to all perspectives, that seemed to be a very powerful one. The way they kept their focus on student needs. And lastly, they always stood up for what was correct. And so we appreciate you all responding to that quick poll. That's super great to hear and get your perspective on that particular question. All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward. I want you to get to know our wonderful and esteemed panelists, and we have an amazing group of people that I get the honor to interview and talk with this afternoon. So we'll start by introducing Dr. Susan Green. Dr. Green, if you know her, you love her. She is committed to cultivating and supporting school cultures where students' social needs and academic needs are at the forefront of all of her decision making. She strives to bring all of her experience as a former teacher, a principal, a leadership development coach, and also a district leader to maximize the learning experiences, making sure that relationship building is at the forefront of all things for kids. Dr. Green currently serves as Senior Citywide Director for Social and Emotional Learning and Design in the New York City Department of Education, Office of Safety and Youth Development. So welcome, Dr. Green. Also, we have Kendrick Kumabe, who is the assistant principal in Las Vegas, Nevada. He authored a book titled Coaching Young Champions, Social Emotional Learning Considerations for the Virtual Hybrid Educator. He enjoys traveling the country and supporting educators and leaders and students on developing implementation plans where SEL lessons are embedded in their school culture and curriculum. So welcome, Kendrick. Thank you that you're here with us. And lastly, Sarah Frayer. Sarah is a academy director out of Washington, D.C. She has a lot of leadership in integrating social emotional learning into the SEL curriculum and framework, which reflects her belief in transformative impact of social emotional learning and resilience building in academic achievement and personal growth. Her and Kendrick are also both part of our educator advisory group here at Harmony. So I wanted to make sure I shouted that out. And Sarah actually was honored as National University's Teacher of the Year for Washington, D.C. in 2019. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to jump right into a quick connection card. You all know, if you're familiar with Harmony, we love a great quick connection card. And so just to kind of get a taste of some of the things you like to do in your spare time, my question to my panelists is, what is something that you wish you could spend more time doing? So Dr. Green, I'm going to ask you to answer our quick connection card first.
Oh, that's an easy one. Thank you, Camilla. Traveling. I like to be in the streets. I want to be like Kendrick when I grow up. I would be all over the place on a plane, on a train, and any automobile. That's where I'd be.
I love it. Thank you. Yes, that is awesome. Kendrick, how would you answer that question?
You know what? I have two beautiful daughters at home, and I would spend more time with my girls if I could, to be honest. I would spend every waking moment with my daughters and my wife if I could. I'm a girl
Oh,
dad, and yeah, that's my favorite
yes,
pastime.
I love that. Spending time with family is invaluable, right? Thank you so much. And Sarah, go ahead and answer the question for us.
I would spend more time at the spa, taking care of myself and getting massages while working full time and being in my doctoral program. It's a lot of stress, and so I need to prioritize that time.
Save a little space for me. That would probably be what I would be doing as well. So thank you so much. Thank you all. It's amazing, how different we all answer that question, but at the same time, it does get to give us a little bit of a peek at, our whole selves, right? And I love that. So thank you for answering that question. So I am going to actually turn it over to Dr. Green, who will be sharing a little bit more depth on the heart of school leadership. Dr. Green?
Hello, and thank you so much. And I'm excited to be here and share a little teeny bit about my journey and the work that I do and the work that I promote. And so let's get the party started.
All right.
So I want to invite everyone who's here with us today just to open up and speak life over ourselves. And so what you have here are 5 affirmations. These are affirmations that I learned about in my training to become a leadership coach. And so I want to encourage us to just take one of them and to maybe just reflect on them for about 30 seconds and pick one that really resonates with you. And if I had to enumerate them, number 1, even in my missteps, I lead with positive intentions. Number 2, I recognize that change is a process and not an event. Number 3, I have agency over my life, my capacity to influence my thoughts and behaviors, and have faith in my ability to lead. Number 4, I am whole and I am enough. That's my favorite. And number 5, I am the right one for the job. And so as you reflect on these numbers 1 through 5, just drop the number in the chat of which one really, or the Q&A, which that really resonates with you. And so I encourage everyone to really just make sure that when you're in any places of doubt, that you lean into one of these affirmations and speak it over yourself. You can advance. Thank you. So usually when I do professional development, particularly leadership development, I always like to open with this particular video by Dr. Brene Brown, who has given all of us agency and the ability to embrace vulnerability. So I want to take a few minutes for us to just watch this very short clip on what she has to say when it comes to the myth about vulnerability.
So I think the biggest myth about vulnerability is that it's weakness. I think a lot of people were raised to believe that. It was modeled, I think, certainly in our culture. We see that a lot, that to be vulnerable, to be open, to be exposed is to be weak. And the truth is, what I found in my research is that vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, I would argue that it's our greatest measure of courage. When we went out and asked people, what is vulnerability? We heard things like, vulnerability is the first date after my divorce. Vulnerability is starting my own company. Vulnerability is taking responsibility for something that went wrong at work. Vulnerability is sitting with my wife who has stage 3 breast cancer and making plans for our young kids. Vulnerability is taking my business public. The definition I use in my work of vulnerability is simply uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Vulnerability is about the willingness to show up and to be seen even when there are no guarantees. And it's interesting to me, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, I gave a talk, it's probably a couple of years now, and it was being translated by people doing American Sign Language, and they came up before the talk started and they said, are there any words that you're going to use a lot in your talk that we should know about that or might be different? And I said, well, I use the word vulnerability a lot. And there were two of them, they kind of looked at each other and they said, oh, we do this for vulnerability. And I said, what does that mean? They said, it means weak in the knees. And I'm like, wow, that's not how I talk about vulnerability. And she said, well, there's only one other sign for vulnerability. And I said, what is it? And she said, and I said, oh, that's what I'm talking about. And so to me, vulnerability is our most accurate measure of courage. It's pretty powerful when I have 13,000 pieces of data collected over 12 years that I cannot find a single incident or story of courage that was not completely underpinned by vulnerability. I think the problem arises that there's so many little paradoxes with vulnerability, and one of them is that vulnerability is courage in you, but weakness in me. When I meet you, it's the first thing I look for in you, but it's the last thing I want to show you in me. And so I think to really put ourselves out there, knowing that if we do that enough, we're going to fail, I just don't think it gets more courageous than that. My name is Brene Brown, and I am a shaman.
Thank you, Camilla, for sharing that with us. And so I hope that there's some things that you heard as we listened to Dr. Brown speak. One of the lines that I love that she says is how courage is underpinned by vulnerability. And you don't get to really doing the work if you can't embrace the vulnerability. I saw some love being dropped, and I appreciate that. And this idea of emotional exposure. And so I don't believe that there's any type of leadership that we can truly engage in without embracing vulnerability and seeing it as a superpower in order to forward the work. And so often when I think about this idea of courageous conversations or difficult conversations, and a lot of this was covered when I was in training to become a leader, and how do you have difficult conversations with staff that might challenge some of the work that's happening within the community or that you want to see happen on behalf of young people. And one of the things that I think that our institutions should probably focus more attention on when it comes to this heart of leadership is, what about the difficult conversations that we have to have with ourselves? And so there's a tremendous amount of vulnerability that has to take place when you have to look in the mirror to really have conversations about the areas in which you may feel that you need to grow as a leader. And so when we're thinking about transforming our school culture and doing that work, it has to start from within ourselves. I think we often think about what's the external work that has to be done, but it also has to start with the work of hearts and mind in our own. And so this quote here, you can't do the work if you don't do the work, that comes from one of the principals that I coach here in the Bronx. And so I believe that when we're thinking about this work, we have to embrace the power of the word why and think about the root cause. And so this idea of just peeling an onion, right, to really get to the core, there are so many layers, but some of this work we want to engage in, I think that some of these questions that you see here are some of the ones that should take us back to our root causes of why we enter this field to serve young people. And so asking ourselves, why did you choose this work? Right? There was something that drove each and every one of us here. How does your life journey and experiences influence how you show up? We can't negate the parts of ourselves that, even if we don't speak a lot about them, that they still have shaped who we are as individuals, whether our childhood experiences with our families or the experiences that we had as young people in the school setting, our early adulthood stages, college experiences, whatever it is that we have done, every part of our life's journey has got us to this place where we are serving right now. And then lastly, really asking this question of, why does high quality educational opportunities, specifically for marginalized populations, matter to you? And that's the question that I think is probably most toughest, because we all may not come from a place that we've really had to ask that question. But I believe that when we are working on behalf of all students, we have to make space to ensure that we're doing work for and being the voice box for the students that might not otherwise have anyone advocating for them. So whether they're your students in temporary housing, or your students with special needs, or your English language learners, your Black girls, whoever, your highly suspended population, whoever they are, who are those marginalized populations that you want to be intentional about ensuring that those students are included in the equation when it comes to offering high quality educational experiences. Continue. And so Simon Sinek speaks to us about the golden circle. And he speaks to us about really going deep into the why. And so I know in my own experience as an educator, and particularly as a principal, there was always this feeling and belief that I walk with that I had to be on, I had to perform, and I had to make sure that I could answer all of the questions the way that was going to be satisfactory to my superintendent, or to maybe parent groups, or anybody that I felt that I had to defend my success as a leader. And people always wanted to know, well, what was I doing about whatever mattered to them, and how was I doing it? And no one ever really asked me the question about why. And so why just had this little teeny weeny dot compared to these larger circles that where I spent more time speaking about the what I did and the how I did it. But I would challenge us, as does Simon Sinek, to really go inside out and think about, again, what really matters to you, and let your why drive your decision making. And so a motto that I have adopted for myself, and I speak it often in any professional settings, is that all decisions are determined by the needs of children and not the convenience of adults. And so I think operating in that way has allowed the staff, when I was serving in the role as a principal, and when I support schools in this work, that all decisions have to be determined by the needs of young people, and not what's convenient for us, including myself as a leader, when it comes to this work. Continue. And so there's a text that I often like to refer to in my professional development settings, Transforming School Culture by Dr. Anthony Muhammad. And in his text, he talks about the work of actually transforming school culture. And he speaks about four different types of educators that exist within the building. He calls them believers, the ones who are 10 toes down and believes that every child can succeed; the fundamentalists, who really like for things to remain the status quo; the tweeners, who are those people who are kind of in a tug of war between the believers and the fundamentalists and straddle the fence sometimes; and then the survivors, who really have to question whether or not the work of education is truly their calling. But one of the things that he speaks about when it comes to transforming school culture is really examining the technical change versus the culture change. And what he offers to us is that we have to have the technical pieces of the work. So what are the technical pieces? The technical pieces are the curriculum that you choose to teach whatever subject area. The technical work are the structures that you put in place for your teacher teams to meet, or having grade leaders, or deciding what programs you're going to offer to young people. But then he says that the work that really is the meat, the cultural change, involves the human development. And he speaks about the work of the hearts and mind. And so when we're thinking about this work, this is the work that really underpins culture change and leadership, and it starts with us. So as I get ready to wrap us up, as we advance to the next slide, I want to think about this idea of attitude and accountability. The technical educator operates with, I taught the skill, I taught the lesson, this is what the children did, and either they got it or they didn't. If they didn't get it, that's not on me, that's on them. But the cultural educator, and speaking specifically around leaders, right? We think about, I taught these skills, what results did they yield? How are they how are students demonstrating what I modeled? Do I see changes in behaviors? What can I celebrate in our young people or even in our staff? What do I need to revisit or reteach? And what other strategies could I use to reinforce the skills? So this educator is constantly reflecting and thinking about the role that they play in the advancement of the work. Continue. And so finally, I invite us to embrace and research Hart's ladder. And what you'll find here are the different stages in which youth-adult partnerships take place. And at the very bottom of the ladder, you'll see here that manipulation, where adults basically utilize youth presence, but they have their own agenda and their goal is to look good. But when we're getting to the very top of that ladder, what you see is actually youth-adult partnership. And I attribute my own development and knowledge base of this work to one of my colleagues who is the youth voice manager for New York City Public Schools, where authentic youth-adult partnerships is where youth actually initiate ideas, and that youth and adults share the decision-making process. And so there comes a real humility and vulnerability when we share space and empower young people to be a part of the decision-making process. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Kalima. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Green. That was a great synopsis and some really practical things for us to think about, and think about how we approach the work that we do with kids, whether it's from a technical or cultural, and really reflecting on how we can make that shift. So I appreciate it. I'm now going to get to hear from everybody on the panel, because I have some questions I would love for you all to be able to answer and for us to hear from everybody. So I'm going to start off actually with Kendrick. And my question for you is, what do you do as a school leader as you strive to show heart in your work every day?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the great question. So for me, I always like to lead by example and lead with compassion. I know that we as a school community, we're like a microcosm of different personalities and different backgrounds. And so I really pride myself on relationship building and making sure that each and every one of my staff members and teachers feel heard, feel supported, and feel valued on my campus.
Thank you. That was good. Sarah, can you give an example of how you've shown your staff, or how you've shown staff that you focus on their whole success as both an educator, as well as being a human, and kind of bringing that element to it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So one of the key things that I do is I set goals for them, and I say, what is your goal professionally for this month? And then what is your goal for yourself? And I always have them target their personal goal. And during the month when I check in, I will say, okay, like for example, If it was Dr. Green, I would say, how's Dr. Green doing? How's that goal going? That means what's her goal for the children? What is your goal for work? And then if I say, well, how's Susan? And she like, oh, well, Susan, I was like, well, work, let's keep that goal going. So making sure that I call them by their first name to remind them of their personal goal that they set, and then by their last name as a community for their schoolwork and their academic success for their children and for their goals at work.
I love that. I love that. I will add that to my arsenal of things that I do. I love that you asked them both of those questions. It really does bring out the human side. This question I'm going to open up to everybody, but let's listen to it first here. It says, what are the benefits you've seen when both students and staff know that you care about their well-being? I'll have Dr. Green open that one up for us first.
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is you get young people to be able to take ownership and engage in self-regulatory behavior when you really work to cultivate those relationships and hold them to high standards and let them know that you have high expectations and that you hold them in high regards. That in due season, that you will see, I have seen that young people, they want to please. And I think that the more that we celebrate the small wins that they engage in, you start to see sustainable behavior with that.
Yeah, thank you. Kendrick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it equates to where it helps to grow that student achievement piece when kids know that you really care about them, and even when your staff know that they're fully supported. Staff tend to work a lot harder, and in turn, they have the kids working a lot harder, and so you just have this huge community of trust where everybody's working at their optimal level. And yeah, the kids are learning, and they come to school, they feel supported, and those smiles, I mean, they're contagious. So that those smiles, they can't fake it. And you just feel that energy when you walk in the building every day.
I love that. I think you said something really key. You said trust, right? Making sure that trust is in place. That's a very powerful thing. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, going back to Dr. Green's amazing presentation, one key thing that I found is that they're able to be vulnerable. With that being said, when I say make it clear that it's okay not to be okay, and there's times that I'm not, or if you don't understand, you don't always have to be on for the staff and the students, because we learn from our mistakes and then we're making those to help someone else, right? And so through that, everyone in our community at my school is able to be vulnerable with each other when something is not right, whether they don't understand or they need support or they just don't feel successful in that moment. And there then is that community to say we're all going to support you with that.
Yeah, good. Awesome. All right, Sarah, I'm going to come back to you again with another question. Which leaders or mentors inspire you to continue to do this work? I hear you're working on a doctoral program, and so you've got to have some really strong people that are in your corner and helping support you during this time.
Yeah, so one of my mentors and my old principal, her name is Dr. Owo Grant, doctor, right? So she is one that always encouraged me as I'm going through this process, one of a very strong person to understand, like, Sarah, you are at the finish line. You have your goals of finishing this and also your goals of in your career, because I am a very what you call high achiever in everything that I like to do, and sometimes she helps me to realize that in the small wins, that's great, and it's okay to take a step back, because though I'm a high achiever, the bad thing about that with that strength is sometimes I personally is never satisfied. Okay, because I just kind of went like, oh, not yet, not yet, and she was like, pause, that is a good thing. You are doing great. Like, you give everyone else grace, like you cheer everyone else on, cheer yourself in this moment, because what you're doing is good enough. So yes.
That's powerful. And you know what? I think she's doing what you do for your staff. She's asking, she's helping support your professional goals, but she's also saying, pause, right? Because Sarah's important as well. So really recognizing that balance really shows the heart of leadership and really helps you to go the extra mile. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And can I just say something quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
To Sarah, I love that in recognizing what your mentor has done for you, that you didn't let it stop there, right? that sometimes we can receive and then it just sits, but the fact that you pay it forward is just absolutely amazing. And this is how we grow this way of being when it comes to leaders and leadership.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. I'm inspired just by listening to you all. All right. So, Dr. Green, another question here. What is your advice to future school leaders and how they can learn some of these skills early in their career to really bring the heart forward in the work that they do?
I think the first thing that's coming up for me is to thine own self be true. And really just showing up as your authentic self. I think the idea of remaining in the space of a learner
Mhm.
on your leadership journey. I'm going to lean back into that first affirmation of even in my missteps, I lead with good intentions, right? I'm working in good intentions. To echo the works and the words of the late Nelson Mandela, he says, I never I never lose, I either win or I learn. And so, how do we operate and see ourselves as ongoing learners? And I'm going to echo, because I literally wrote this down on my notes, Sarah, I mean it, that grace, right? That even when we fall, how do we grant ourselves the grace and model that grace for ourselves, extend that grace to others, and then expect that grace for the babies?
Excellent. Awesome. One more question. I'm going to give this one to Kendrick. It came from the Q&A. Um, do you have a favorite community builder that you use with your staff? Anything come to mind?
Oh, yes, ma'am. So I have this game that I learned how to play with. Basically, I take a bunch of gift cards and small little gifts, and I have some cash, like $5 bills, $10 bills. What I do is I take it and I wrap each layer, like each little gift, in Saran wrap until I have like this huge ball full of like gifts. And then I have a pair of dice, and basically what I do is I have the staff sit in a circle, and I have them one person will roll the dice until they get doubles, and one person unwraps. So they're frantically unwrapping this huge saran wrap full of gifts, if you will, while the person in front of them are trying to roll double so that they get to unwrap. And the faster you unwrap, the more likely you are to get a prize. And I've found that to be a great icebreaker because all of a sudden everybody's rolling dice all fast and ripping open the saran wrap, trying to get to the gift cards and the money. So that's something
I
that I
love
do in
that.
the beginning of the year, and the staff absolutely love it.
I love
Very
that. We
awesome.
do that during the holidays with my family. And I would imagine that some teachers would even get excited about supplies being wrapped in there. So if you didn't have or you can intermittently mix those gift cards with a pack of pens, highlighters, expo markers, especially at the beginning of the school year. So I love that. It adds a little bit of excitement and competitive nature. So awesome. All right. So I want to share a little bit of Harmony content, and then we'll come back for some last words in a moment. So let me get us back on track. Want to make sure everyone can see our screen. All right, such a good discussion. Thank you all so much. I love those discussions. I feel like we never have enough time for all of it, but I do want to make some Harmony connections. As you all know, we have some great resources for Harmony, from home to school connections, out of school time. We have Harmony kits. I want to make sure you all are aware. For those of you that are not familiar with Harmony, we have a very robust curriculum that offers access to pre-K through sixth grade curriculum. We have great everyday practices that allow culture and climate to be built and boosted in a classroom setting and on campuses. We work with out of school time programs, after school programs, to bring those skills into there, as well as Harmony at home. In addition to all of that, most people aren't aware that we do have Harmony professional learning modules. This can support any educator from pre-K through 12, and it's on demand and is available through our portal. So feel free to scan that QR code to access that. Something to know also about our curriculum is that it is evidence-based. It is flexible. As a Harmony user, you're going to love the flexibility of it. It does allow for you to make it work for your schedule, for your setting. It does foster belonging and supports teachers, and it is grade level specific. So you have unique lessons and materials that are provided by each grade level. And you can see some of those things that support the lessons, like stories, games. We have a game room app and some other features. So I strongly encourage you to hop onto our Harmony portal and check out some of those resources at your will. We also have something new that has recently launched that we're really excited to share with everybody. It's called Harmony Plus. There are so many features to Harmony Plus that really support leaders in gaining knowledge and tools on our micro courses through our Harmony Leader Certificate. So this is a great way to earn CEUs and credits toward our doctoral programs at National University. Depending on your state and district policy, you can certainly look into how that correlates, but it definitely offers some great tools for you to consider. There are some enhanced educator well-being and retention things that we focus on there. This allows you to prepare and implement policies that support sustainable SEL practices while building educators' SEL capabilities and capacity, improving knowledge, and increasing the desire to stay in the profession. So we're really giving those skills there. We also like to focus that we improve leadership skills through these certificates, and we allow for a positive school culture to be developed and improved through the implementation of relationship-driven strategies. We also focus here on improved engagement and reduction of chronic absenteeism. This is designed to execute a comprehensive data-driven SEL strategies that boost students and staff morale and connection to one another. The sense of belonging really will trickle down to an increased effect of school attendance, right? We want to make everybody feel like they're part of it, and we really lean into that work through this leader certificate. We also have some enhanced family and community relationships that we focus on through these modules. And there are some initiatives that promote collaborations with family, community networks, targeted through SEL practices. And lastly, for this leader certificate, we also have an elevated professional standing by earning a certificate that can give you, again, those CEUs and offer pathways through the National University Sanford College of Education to be applied toward credits for a doctoral program, again, pending your district and state policies. So really, really robust program that we're excited that we're launching. I'm going to actually have Sarah Frayer come back because it is my understanding that she's taken a little peek at some of the program behind closed doors. And so, Sarah, I want to kind of ask a question, like how many, or how do you think, should I say, these new courses can benefit our school leaders or even aspiring school leaders in supporting their journey? What are your thoughts?
Yes, well, thank you for that. I have been able to glance through it, and it's really good. I would say the key thing that took away from it, of like where it got my attention right away, for leaders that you can learn from this are aspiring leaders, because we're all, let me say this, we're all leaders in some way of capacity, right? So though you might not have the title of principal or assistant principal, there's some type of leadership you have. Even if you're in the classroom, you're leading those children. And what you can take from this as you're building your leadership roles is that you can look at it and say, like, for example, there was one that stood out. It was saying, like, as we see problems, right? Let's say we see a problem, and it helps you to look through the lens of how to solve the problem through an SEL lens. Meaning, for example, let's say that teachers, you gave them a survey and they realize like they feel burnt out, they don't have enough time to plan. And one of the videos they were showing, they basically give you strategies on how to solve that. And in the video, this principal was saying how he would meet in with them, he would do an SEL warm-up, and then he took the staff to make sure he really honored that time. So there was time in their schedule where they could collaborate with each other and make sure that it had planning time for themselves and each other to really build that capacity. And with that, through the SEL lens, what that is saying is they're able to set goals. We know that's part of CASA with SEL. And then they're able to exceed those goals and have a way, then they also are building their communication skills to say, this is what I need. So what we might think is very small, this shows you what is really big and how to stretch that out. So I'm very thankful for that. And I also did see, of course, some other best practices and research based. I will say, like she said, you can earn credits. I am a graduate of the master's program at National University. I got my master's in social emotional learning. And so I will say, if you have not thought about National University and you want to learn more about SEL, please get your master's degree in it or your PhD, and it would really take you to the next level of understanding what SEL is and how to implement it for you and your school's community.
Awesome, Sarah. You did that so well. I had no idea how she was going to answer that question. Thank you. Thank you for your honest opinion and just your own personal firsthand experience in what National has done for you and just the development of the SEL program overall. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. All right, so we are going to get some final thoughts from our panelists because I know we are nearing our time. And so I want to be able to bring everyone back on camera just to get a little bit of a final thought before we wrap things up. I would love to hear from the panelists any final thoughts. What is most important? What are you thinking you want to just share as a last sending nugget for your during your time? I'll open it up. Anybody? Dr. Green, you want to lead us?
Sure. I think for me, really understanding the power of the why and knowing what you're doing, why does it matter, and how are you expressing and sharing that with your community so that they can understand what drives your decision making. As I just shared with someone in the Q&A, without the why, it just becomes compliance work, and our students deserve better. So share the why and be bold about it.
The why. Thank you. Kendrick.
Yeah, there's a saying that I like to live by, connection over content. So a lot of times we go in and we try to teach our kids, sorry,
It's
as
okay.
I'm live on camera here. We try to teach our kids new content. We also try to teach our teachers new content, but a lot of times they don't really care how much we know until they know how much we care. So really going in with the lens of connection over content, building those strong relationships with both your teachers and your students will pay dividends in the long run.
I love that. Connection over content. I feel like that should go on a shirt or something. So that was good. Thank you so much, Kendrick. Sarah.
Yes, I would just leave with, as we know, this is hard work that we're doing. And so it gets rough, right? And don't get too burnt out. Don't get to that level where you get too stressed out and you're not taking care of yourself. Are not taking care also of your community, right? Because when you represent your best self, you're helping your community. So remember, this is hard work. Do it with your heart. And as you lead, I also like to lead, as I say, with a teacher heart, meaning that I'm always reflecting of what it was when I was in the classroom, things that I wish could have happened, and what did go well, and what did that leader do. So then that helps lead the teachers that they don't have to go through things that you might have went through, and you're making it better for your community.
So powerful. It's no surprise that you all are our panelists during our talk here today. We are going to get ready to wrap this up. I want to make sure that I shine a light on our next webinar that we have coming up October 28th, which is in a few days next week. And we're going to be talking about creating harmony and belonging as a solution to chronic absenteeism. We've heard so much about this topic recently, and so we've got a great panel that we've put together that we will be addressing this issue. So we certainly invite you to come back and join us on Monday. Put this in your calendar, share it with your staff. I feel like everybody could benefit, school leaders, frontline educators, everyone can benefit from this. So please be sure to mark your calendar for this. And you can register with the QR code. I believe also a link may get put in the chat. This will also be recorded. So if you cannot watch it live due to maybe your school day doesn't allow for it, please register. You will get the recording. The link is on the screen there at the bottom. And that is all we have for you today. I am so grateful. Thank you. All I can say is thank you. I can't say thank you enough to our panelists who took the time to be here. As we heard Kendrick's walkie-talkie, we know we're always on. We're always working and doing things to support young people. Thank you, guests who have been here watching us, attendees. We're so very grateful for you. And we look forward to seeing everyone at our next webinar on Monday. You all have a great afternoon. Thank you.